Peter is highly intelligent. He did excellent work. I mean, no wonder he got a full professorship in Berkeley and was nominated to the American Academy of Sciences. But I told him very frankly that he's killing people with his theories, and I still stick to that.
I was the blue-eyed boy in retroviruses. I couldn't lose anything. I was very popular, accepted, I got all my grants funded. Lab was full of students and postdocs, and I was studying the genetic structure of retroviruses, particularly how they would cause cancer.
He was the best C-type man in the world for a while. A good intellectual person.
How well were you funded by the government?
I got everything I needed, I wanted. More than that. I got an outstanding investigator grant because of my relative merits, finding the first viral oncogene. I won the California Scientist of the Year award for that.
You were also nominated to the National Academy of Sciences, is that right?
Yeah, and I was more than nominated. I was even elected into it. Yeah. And I was advanced from a postdoc to a full professor in a couple of years. I concluded that retroviruses play a negligible role in cancer in general, and based on the evidence available to me at the time, no role in AIDS.
It was an important paper published in a leading journal, Cancer Research, and nobody responded. Because he felt that this was so important, he started to prod his colleagues to say, come on guys, you know, look at the evidence I've presented here, react to it, respond to it, especially when AZT and other drugs started to be used, which he believed were killing patients in large numbers. He became more and more vociferous about this issue. And then his colleagues previously good friends, Gallo and others, in retrovirology and in the wider infectious diseases field, they became very angry with him because they felt that, well, their argument was that he was damaging the public health efforts by raising these questions.
We were relatively good friends and good tennis partners. But then when HIV came around and he voiced the doubts that HIV is the origin or cause of AIDS, our friendship was then terminated because we couldn't talk to each other anymore.
He was a very respected virologist at one time and went off on this, I think probably anti-Gallo thing, which is easy to do because Bob Gallo's a difficult person and Peter was a good scientist and Bob being a very bright scientist, but it was in some ways just as crazy as Peter, but in his own self-serving way. Mm-hmm. But Peter just went off the deep end scientifically.
They had made huge investments in this theory. Their careers, their papers, their students, their academic standing, and not the least of it, their huge commercial interests. Almost all of my peers on the right side of the hypothesis, or on the other side of with the right hypothesis, have huge commercial conflicts of interest that are not carefully not mentioned by the press or the journals. They have stocks in Boris Wellcome. They have stocks. See, it's not an accident that these campuses like ours are surrounded by biotechnology companies, Chiron and Genentech, like metastasis, like a tumor by metastasis. They go there and they have their stocks there, and they triple their income if that is enough. So they pay their huge homes on the hill, their Porsches, their Carreras, their mistresses, what have you. And that comes all from, these are all investments that are based on their professional on their science, on their professional investments.
So you serve to destroy all that.
If this is called into question, they're standing to lose all of this. This is no time for academic debates or no time for jokes for them.
Distrust makes great sense politically, and I'm all for it.
Great.
But in matters of medicine, I do trust in science.
I don't think continuing debate really gets you anywhere. People are going to say what they think. It's really a matter of whether anyone pays attention to them.
I don't tend to address them publicly because to address it publicly gives them credibility.
Okay. So this is something that you think should not be debated. It should just be left alone and let
It should be left alone and allowed to die.
They use all the power they have to eliminate all dissenting votes. And that is totally unscientific. Totally. All progress in science came from minorities. It's never the mainstream saying, let's vote a new idea. They want their idea to stay there, their investments to protect. Always.
They were also very concerned about the reputation of science. You know, if after a few years, suddenly for someone to turn around and have to say, oh, sorry guys, we got this wrong. It's not actually a deadly new virus at all. It's related to specific causes in specific different groups of people whose immune systems have failed. And all that stuff about, you know, you all being at risk was just a bit of imagination on our part. I mean, this is a big egg on face, isn't it?
Good Morning America called to come to talk about my view on AIDS. And I was going to see Joan London live for the first time. And I was all excited about it. Yeah, so she was going to, we were going to talk about AIDS. It was a great opportunity.
And what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to tell her it's not, don't worry about sex with anybody. It's not caused by, it's not sexually transmitted, it's not a virus. There are other things to worry about. We can talk about that later, or right away. That's what I had in mind. And here came the phone call, first phone call. I said, oh, maybe Joan is coming over for a drink already. But that wasn't it. It was some kind of a staffer who said, something urgent came up. You won't be on tomorrow morning, but have a nice evening. But you can watch us, tune in at whatever, in the hotel. And I did. And there was Anthony Fauci with Joan London, telling her how bad the HIV virus is and how much she should be concerned about sex with anybody, including him.
The opposite of what you were going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did that make you feel?
Well, I said, well, Fauci still has better connections than I do. And he got to talk to her, and I got to return home to expect the next invitation that has yet to come. And I don't think Joan London even works there anymore. So.
How did the publishing of that paper change your life and your ability to work?
A lot, yeah. From then on, or within a few years thereafter, I could not get any more grants renewed. I could no longer get any graduate students. I was no longer asked to teach any lecture courses to graduate students. I was diminished to a researcher trying to find some minimal funds for work in the laboratory. They don't give you merit increases. They give you older labs. They don't let you teach in popular graduate courses. They don't put you into popular committees. You're not there at receptions. I wasn't invited to Christmas parties any longer. I wasn't invited at dinners. I wasn't at committee meetings that made decisions on seminar speakers and new faculty positions, all of this. You're slowly frozen out.
What about grants?
Grants were all denied from then on.
Had you ever been denied before for a grant?
None, never before. Steve O'Pine, yeah, from the NIH, or from Frederick, an old friend actually, a friend of Carlos and of mine, it's a retrovirus and, well, also cancer researcher. He said, I have to see you urgently. He wouldn't tell me over the phone what it was. And he said, it's a shame what's happening to you. You're a good man, you're a sharp guy, you did good work on oncogenes, and your critique on oncogenes is very important. We all gave it second thought after your critique of it. But you have been unduly, well, ostracized because of your question about HIV and AIDS. Although we all see now that you were wrong, but you asked legitimate question, and the treatment is embarrassing, we should do something about it. Can I see you? And I said, what are you going to do? Can't tell you, it's too important. Over the phone. Can I see you tomorrow or tonight? I said, where are you in NIH? Yeah, I'll take a plane right away. So, took the plane right away. Next day he was there. In the evening, I said, I have an opera subscription date. Get me another ticket, I come along. So we met at the opera. Les Liaisons Dangereuses was the title. Mike Bishop was there too. And I said, so what is it now, Steve? And pulls out a manuscript signed by him, by Steve Blattner, I think, and me, provisionally. Yeah. I was on it, and HIV was the cause of AIDS. Koch's postulates were met. If I'd signed that, it would be published in Nature the same week, he said. He's flying the same week to London, and from there, wherever, to China. And Maddox already has the manuscript and said, if he stays on there, it's out this week.
And what did he promise you when you signed?
Well, he didn't say you get so many dollars for it, but he said if that would be out, he said my problems would probably be over. I would be accepted by the scientific community, and I would get grants and students and all the good old things again. I mean, he didn't sign me a document exactly like the devil typically does. He didn't say, here's the money, but that was definitely the implication. Yeah.
And what did you do?
Well, I looked at it and said, it doesn't seem to be compatible with anything I have said before. And he said, yes, it isn't quite, but you must accept the new developments. And I said, look, we are now here at the opera, we had a drink afterwards. I took him to the airport at the hotel because he was going to leave to London the next morning to Meadows. I said, good, call me tomorrow, or I call you tomorrow. You can read it tonight and tomorrow and see what you do. But I have to know it because I have dinner the next night with Meadows, the editor of Nature. So I called him and I said, look, I read it, Steve. The best I can offer is you publish the manuscript as it is, and I write a little extra paragraph on the same page, on the same, next to it, side by side, in which I say, list what we could agree on, but that the fundamental disagreement remains. I don't see that HIV proves the first, and certainly not the third of Koch's postulates, which is the most critical one, that when injected or infected, you get the disease.
So what was their response to you?
No publication in Nature. That was the response. He was, of course, disappointed in a sense, because I think he had himself in mind. Of course, he had the field in mind, but there was also a touch of old friendship in there. I think so.
Are you friends with any of these people anymore?
Frozen. Frozen. We never exchanged a bad word, but they don't call me. And I I call them occasionally, but they don't answer or don't want to see me. That everybody in America is afraid nowadays to speak freely on this issue. They say nobody is anymore an expert on AIDS. They say, I'm only studying the virus. I'm only an epidemiologist. I'm only a toxicologist. Nobody can say anything general anymore. Oh, yes, it's true, we have reservations. Even Flossie Wongstall, one of the closest collaborators. Yeah, it's true there are problems, but it's an interesting virus. That's what I'm studying. Or I'm just an immunologist. I want to know how this virus escapes the immune system. Or I'm only an epidemiologist. I'll see how that the virus doesn't spread like another virus does. It's not random. It's only in homosexuals and junkies. We have to figure out how, but that doesn't, I cannot say more. This kind of answer you get a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Particularly when you are together in a bar and there are no lights and no microphones. But, you know.
With all you've had to endure, why almost 20 years later do you continue to go against the grain, continue to fight the system, knowing the more vocal you are, the worse the character assaults will be? What do you get out of this?
What do I get out of this now? Well, it is, of course, an intellectual game that has a certain satisfaction. Can you win it or can you lose it? Intellectually, that is. You lose politically and socially quite a bit, but science is, in a sense, a game to hunt the truth. Who wins it? Who finds it? You know. And from that point of view, I think I'm on the right track. I'm counting every year. I'm looking at the basic papers they published. I'm looking at the vaccines they promised to find. It's not coming. You know, Edward Jenner, the British doctor who invented vaccination in 1790, in one season he got a vaccine ready. He invented the concept and he delivered a vaccine that is used to this day against smallpox. Working. Here we have the most sophisticated, the most advanced, the most righteous and the most infallible society in the world, the United States of America, in the late 20th and the early 21st century, with $120 billion on HIV and AIDS, trying to produce a vaccine that Edward Jenner produced in one season for 60 pounds in 1793. And what do we have? Nothing. We have Nobel Prize winners that you interviewed getting upset at Caltech, and we have others being directors of Sloan Kettering, or directors of NIHID, and giving complicated explanations why it's so complicated for them. What was a season's work for Edward Jenner 215 years ago.